Arts. Are you a football fan? Have you ever found yourself wondering, what in the world was that ref thinking? Well, Mike D, the referee, is here to help you. Join me on Whistle Talk as I talk to professionals on the field and in the booth to help you understand what is going on inside the mind of a football official. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Whistle Talk. Mike D, the referee, here joining you on a Monday night, little wet, rainy, cold Monday night here in New Jersey, getting ready for the holiday season. Got a very special guest coming with us tonight. But before we jump in with my guest, I just want to remind everybody, if you like what you're listening to, please hit those like buttons, hit those subscribe buttons. Go to that YouTube page, hit all those fun buttons. Again, none of those things cost you anything. And if you do feel like splurging, it's the holiday season and you want to buy me a beer, you could always go to my website, click on Buy Me a Coffee. Here's the link, buymeacoffee.com/Mike D, the referee. I am an ardent coffee drinker, along with sometimes I'll splurge and have a little beer here and there. But you got all those different spots there. So, again, hit those like, hit those subscribe buttons. So now on to the fun stuff. Now on to the show, where everybody is here tonight. Got with me a special guest tonight, Mr. Mike Goldman. And for those of you that don't recognize the name, I'm going to hold up a little thing here. Mike Goldman is the author of our book here, Friday Night Stripes. Mike, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I was really happy to hear that you were willing to take the chance and jump on with us. And for the listeners out there, Mike's a first-time podcaster, so we're breaking him in. But I got a feeling this is going to be the first of many when this book starts really exploding. It's been out for a couple months now, and I know in the football officiating world, it's definitely getting some nice traction. So, Mike, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. Where you're from right now, what you happen to be doing other than being an author.
Well, I'm retired, been retired 8 years. I worked for the Postal Service at headquarters. I wasn't a letter courier. They wouldn't let me mail. I got into officiating, this is the end of my 32nd season in football. I also did 20 years of basketball. And so I probably have officiated 1,000 games. I remember about three of them, so that's why I decided to write the book about it. All vignettes. I've been married for 16 years. My wife is a Brit and does not understand why anybody likes American football. In her words, all people do is stand around. She looks at the huddle and go, "What are they doing?" You know, she's used to rugby and football, which of course we call soccer. So she has no interest in football. But on Saturday nights, we would sit on the porch and I'd smoke a cigar and she'd have a drink, and I'd tell her about my games. And I really think she could go out and officiate a game at this point.
Oh, good stuff. Teaching her the game along the way.
Much to her regret, yes.
Well, unfortunately or fortunately for you, it's definitely something that I know my wife has definitely learned a thing or two, a little bit more about the game since I got into the officiating. I was lucky enough, though. I married into, my wife was always a sports fan and was a football fan growing up too. So she was a little bit easier to kind of manage to finagle to come see a couple of the games when I was first coaching. And then, she hasn't really come see me officiate a game other than when I would do a local game, just because she was going to see the local high school itself. But other than that, so tell our listeners a little bit. I know it's all in your book here, but give us a little backstory about what got you into high school officiating.
Well, I played high school football. I had a very successful season. I sat on the bench junior year. Was a starter senior year. Had a great coach. He created the belly, or did he implemented the belly series, which was a quarterback option.
Yeah.
At the time, it was so many years ago that it was really considered revolutionary. Uh, we we won the Blue Division City Championship in Chicago. They had 3 different leagues or levels of play: red, white, and blue. When you won, if you won enough games in blue, you moved up to white, and if you won enough in white, you moved up to red. So we moved up into the white division, and we were successful there. I graduated. The team continued to win. Finally got itself in the red division, and as I said in the book, they all played like Dick Butkus. In fact, one of them was Dick Butkus.
That's insane. That's crazy.
He graduated in Chicago a little before I did. Anyway, we got into the red division, and I was asked by the head coach, would I help in the spring drills? Because his assistant just really wasn't interested. And then as the summer went through, as we got through the summer, it turned out that coach took a job at a suburban high school. So there was no one left to be the head coach. So I ended up being a volunteer head coach. Had a 1-6 record. Lost the last game 59-0.
So wait a minute. I got to ask this question, and I didn't even think about it. So it was the head coach plus you as the only 2 coaches, and then you were the only coach after he took the other job?
Actually, well, this is a funny story. I was working at a day camp, and I knew this guy who was a PE teacher, and he was looking for a place to go. And I said, I know where there's an opening, and he ended up being at my high school.
Okay.
And then because I was already acting like the head coach, he just let me have my way. Now
There you go.
story about his name is Jack. The thing about Jack is he was a scholarship running back at Illinois, and he just wasn't a starter, even though he had a scholarship, prep back of the week, all that kind of stuff. So they put him on the practice squad, or the Spartan squad, where they ran the plays of next week's opponent. So every 4 out of 5 days out of the week, he would play center against Dick Butkus.
Oh.
So I said, Jack, you should have been the greatest center in the history of football. He said, no. After 7 weeks, he said, I'm done. I quit. But he was
understandable.
But I drew up all the plays and all that stuff. When I think back now, the liability I had, because we were having special practices and stuff. Well, anyway, we lost this game. It was terrible. We were leaving the field. I had a few words with the principal, which I regret to this day. But I told the principal I didn't like the fact that he didn't have a professional as the head coach. And I was talking to this other guy after I mouthed off, and he said, "Did you ever think about being an official or being a referee?" Yeah, no one's officials. And I said, "Gee, that's really a good idea." He said, "Well, I'll take you down, take a test, all that stuff." And I said, "Well, I got to get through college first. I'll do it." And then time just went by, and now I'm a father. My son is playing high school football, freshman football. He quit after his sophomore year. He didn't want to play football anymore. And I said, well, now it's my turn. And I decided to go into training to be an official. So I was 1993. I was 48 years old.
Okay.
And I was older than everybody, And as I said, Ron Taylor was my instructor. And he got up in front of everybody and he said, "You're never going to look at a game the same ever again."
Yep.
And he was like, I don't care if it's curling. I'm watching the officials. And then, like I said, after a couple of years, I didn't like sitting around that much, so I decided to do basketball as well, which, of course, is a totally different game, especially for officiating in terms of your involvement. In football, we're all passive. We throw a flag, keep it to ourselves. In basketball, you're part of the game. You come in there, You stop play. So it's an interesting economy, and it ended up biting a few people in the rear end because they were officiating with a basketball instead of mine in football. And I'll get into that a little bit later.
Gotcha.
But anyway, I started training, and there were a lot of challenges because I think my age had something to do with it. And little by little, I started to get better freshman games. Finally, when I was in my third year of training, I got my first varsity game, and it's been fun since then.
Very nice. So I want to backtrack just a little bit, and Mike and I were talking before we hit the record tonight about a play that he mentions in his book that happened in his coaching career, the old sleeper play. Mike, you mind describing the play that you had called back in the day?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how I found out about it. We were so desperate to get any kind of score. So we're playing a team, and we set it up. We got into a huddle. We sent one guy in, two guys came off, and the second guy didn't go off. He just stayed.
Yep.
And, I think I was we were what we called the Penn State spread. We had the center on the end of the line.
Oh, okay.
So we had this ball got snapped. We threw the pass as the guy went downfield unguarded. He probably got 20 yards, and then he got nailed and knocked down. Oh, now the thing about a surprise play is once you do it, the surprise is over.
Yeah.
The next week, we were playing one of the toughest schools in Chicago, Lane Tech. It was, all boys and all that stuff. And I decided I was going to try the same play. And this is where when we broke the huddle, they spotted the sleeper right away. They said they put two guys on him. I never had a backup plan for my quarterback who had one good leg. I just describe all this in the book. So he looked at me and I went, "Throw it in the stands," and he threw it in the stands. He threw it about 20 rows up in the stands. He had quite an arm. It hit the entrance, which is a slanted roof, and the football actually left the stadium. 5 flags right away. And I went, I think I'm done as a coach.
Well, the reason I'm asking you to bring that up, and we got a couple people that are joining us, but it's been a big thing going on today all over social media. I'm going to play you a replay of something that just happened this past weekend in a playoff game in a nearby state. Oh, wait, that's the wrong one. Here we go.
There's lunch, yeah.
Got my intro music again. So here we got Darien versus New Canaan, and you're going to see coming out on the field. They got a huddle here. This is the beginning of a possession. It's right after a punt. And all of a sudden, 29 comes sprinting onto the field.
There's a wide open man.
And there's the sleeper play.
He's all by himself. Look at this. He's on his way to a touchdown. Tommy Hergen. A blown coverage by New Canaan. Touchdown.
Now, that one there is run a little bit differently than what you had described, but it's the same concept of instead of your guy stayed on the field, never actually exited the field, but he looked like he was subbing off. This player came off the sidelines onto the field, and the big discussion was, should a flag have been called on that? And it should have been. Unfortunately, it was missed, and here comes the human element that I talk about a lot and on the show. It missed. It was a missed call. It should have been called for deception. Even though the player did get inside the nines, he was inside the numbers. It defeats the reason for the rule, for the substitution rule that was put into play. So it should have been an unsportsmanlike type of penalty. So it's unfortunate. The team that ran it, it came back to bite them in the butt, I think. I don't think they ended up being victorious in that game, but it tied the game up at the time, and it made it a really tight game. So, but I know it's been all over social media right now, so I just wanted to throw that out there because it's kind of ironic that you're talking about it in your book, and here we are years later, and it's still being run. So, kind of funny.
Well, it's
So
an
now,
act
Mike,
of desperation.
yeah. Uh, Tell us a little bit about the motivation for you diving into why you wrote a book.
Uh, well, you get to be my age, you start having a bucket list of all the things you want to do, and writing a book was one of them. And then we talked about this earlier, but um, I had the IW of all IWs. I wasn't the whistleblower, but if you've been in this at any length of time, you're going to have an IW. This time, excuse me. This time, we cost a team a game. We
Mhm.
we made them losers. Um, the guy was going around and there was no one in front of him. Someone grabbed his face mask, and my linesman threw his flag and blew his whistle. And there was no one between him and the end zone. It was a reverse. So I was pretty upset about it. So I decided to write about it. I wrote it down. I went through all sorts of things. I went through all 5 stages of grief in a matter of a microsecond. Um, and then when I got done writing it, I looked at it and said, well, that's a chapter.
Yeah.
So now I'll just build around it. And, started filling things in, recalling stories. We submit game reports after games. So I was looking at those and I had some interesting stuff there. And the real thing, though, is that I think people view the 5 or 7 officials as brothers out there, being buddies and all this stuff. And what I'm revealing is there's a lot of hate going on at times. Hate's probably too strong a word, but one-upsmanship. You didn't do this right, you didn't do that right. Criticisms, all that kind of thing. So it's a different view, I think, for most people. I think it's a realistic view. The amount of harmony between the crews can be questionable at times, especially when you have guests on your crew.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it was just reliving some of this stuff, getting angry all over again sometimes. Actually writing something, sitting back, and go, that guy was a jerk, And then there was time to go, I was the jerk,
Yeah.
But
And it's ironic.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry to interrupt.
wrote the book, and then the next question is, what do I do with it? And Amazon, of course, makes it very, very simple. And we put it up. The cover was AI generated.
Really?
Yeah. I was
That's
very
not
impressed. Yeah. From Microsoft Designer.
There you go.
It took a few iterations. But yeah, so we put the book up. It's some people are reading it. I mean, it's sold almost. Well, this morning it was 185 copies, which I didn't know I had that many relatives. So, but it's people are reading it. I'm reading. Not that many people have reviewed it, but the people that have reviewed it, a lot of them are saying, "Well, yeah, I remember when that happened. Yeah, that's the way it works. That kind of stuff." One guy was critical because I'm critical of the association. I've been in 3 different associations, so it's a combination of different associations.
Yeah.
But yeah, my biggest concern about the book is it may come out too negative about football, and that's not true for me. I enjoy football. I just think safety is paramount. And when people cheer, when some guy gets wiped out on a block, and you don't know if the guy's going to get up, I go, what are they thinking? That's their sons and sometimes their daughters out there. But as I said, we're passive in football. I mean, you see a helmet to helmet. You see a punch thrown, anything like that, we throw a flag. And when the play's over, then we're going to discuss it. So we're really not preventing anything.
So I'm adding here just a link. If you click onto this link, if you're watching the show, you click onto that link, that'll take you to the Amazon link for the book. So it's available for you on Amazon right there. So we'll throw that back on a little bit later. But yeah, that's pretty amazing. And talking about the crew stuff, I'm lucky enough that here in New Jersey, we do predominantly work with set crews. But like you said, I'm on my second crew. The first crew and I, not that I actually really enjoyed the people, but we kind of had separate opinions on different things. And I was looking to switch positions at the time also. We had a veteran umpire at the time. And he had actually gotten sick, so I filled in from the wing position to the umpire position, and that kind of gave me the taste of becoming an umpire. So it was something that I was looking to pursue. And he was coming back from being sick, so I knew that wasn't a spot for me with that particular crew. But yeah, being guest on crews, you definitely see some things that you like with certain crews and with certain people, and some other ones that you're like, that guy's not my cup of tea, or definitely not somebody I want to share a beer with or something like that. So it is something that is definitely out there. And hopefully we can put the egos aside and do what's right for the kid, because that's ultimately what we're out there for, is to do what's right for the kid. So, yeah, it's definitely an interesting dynamic.
In the game I described, obviously all these things didn't happen in a single game. We'd still be playing that game. I created a crew of almost, well, there was a 7-man crew, 4 people who I did not get along with. And that's how it was easy to do the story, you know. A couple people though were, you know, we're friends, we're buddies. You know, I mean, the umpire I described there, yeah, the umpire, he would keep me calm and, you know, keep us going. Yeah. He was the buddy.
So now, for officiating the different amounts of years that you've had, the fact that this is kind of piecemealed from different games and different crews and stuff like that, what kind of stories didn't make the cut? Do you have anything else that you were teetering on about putting in there that you kind of took out?
Well, it's not that it didn't make the cut. I probably put anything I could in there, but I wish I could have put this in the book. Let's put it this way. I was doing a game. I'm a white hat. Doing a game. And we came out and I saw the AD and we introduced each other. And the AD turned to me and she said, "The principal is going to do the coin flip." I said, "Oh," you know, she didn't ask. She said, but yep. She pays the bill. So I said, "Just do me one favor. Would you have her come over and practice the flip for me so I can see it?" So she came over. I think she was younger than my daughter. I'm not going to tell how old my daughter is, but, you know, she came over and I gave her the coin, and she just kind of like, she had never flipped a coin before. And then I realized I've never told anybody how to flip a coin before either. You know, well, do this and do that. And, you know, finally I had her hand over my hand and I flipped my thumb so she could feel it. So now here I am holding hands with the principal of the high school before the game. Yeah.
Oh, that's a Kodak moment for you.
Yeah, it was, you know, so she went away, came out for halftime, or came out for the coin flip, and the coin flip was so good, I have a feeling she was putting me on.
Ah, nice.
You know, I really, you know, wait a second, you know. But yeah, that's a story. There's a couple others, but that's the one I wish I could have had time to put in.
Yeah, I've had a couple of coin flips where it was a saucer instead of a flip.
Yeah.
So now, being a white hat, you unfortunately take the brunt of a lot of criticism that might not be truly directed towards you. You got guys on your crew that are throwing the flags, but you're the one that's announcing it and signaling it. What do you find to be one of the most challenging situations that you may have encountered because of being the crew chief?
Well, I have a sense of humor about the whole thing. At least I try to. Um, I've gotten angry after the game with some fans. That's a different story. But when you get the criticism, it's usually an assistant coach, and they don't know what they're talking about. And you give them the answer of, well, we'll look for that coach. And that seems to mollify them. They wanted to make their point. And then you always get that's holding. It's 30 yards away from the point of attack, and it's a stretch jersey. And you go, we'll watch for it, coach. But one of the things about football, about officiating, it's just enjoyable. You're there, you're doing this game, you're part of something, and it's 2 hours and 20. I call it the 2-hour 20-minute vacation from life, because if you're thinking about the game, you're not thinking about anything else, and game. No one cares about the game. I mean, other than the fans, but there's a billion Asians in China who couldn't care less about the game. That's always in my pre-game speech. Just go out and I said, don't be afraid to smile. If we're having a good time, you're having a good time, smile.
Yeah.
That helps a little bit, make it out there.
No, I've actually had a number of players say to me, "You look like you're enjoying this," and I'm like, "I am." Heck, you get a good high school band out there, and I'm an umpire. I'm waiting on the offense to break the huddle, and I'm standing around with the defense. I'm singing "Sweet Caroline" just like everybody else in the bleachers. So I'm enjoying myself on a Friday night.
Yeah, Friday Night Lights.
Absolutely. So now you brought it up with the rules interactions and dealing with the coaches. I couldn't agree with you more that 99% of the time it's the assistant coaches. And it's funny because I do talk about this on a couple of my other episodes. You do have the one assistant coach that is a rule book guy. Not every staff has it, but it's great when there is a staff that has it, that they got a guy, oh, I've got the rule book here. I just read the rule. I'm like, okay, go to page 85. And then they go to 85 and they're like, all right, I'm going to shut up now. So sometimes it's enjoyable to remind them that, okay, you may have read that book once.
The rule book guy, I used to turn to and say, what color is the cover? Yeah.
Good point.
And if they can't answer it, of course, today everything's online, but most of them couldn't answer it, and we just went and go ahead and do the game. One thing about being a veteran of football, 32 seasons, there's an awful lot of coaches who recognize me.
Yes,
that have done their games before, and because of that, it makes it just a little bit easier.
Yeah, it definitely does, and they kind of know your personality. They kind of know the way that you're going to call a game and different things like that. So it's definitely a good thing when you're doing the job the correct way. What about those newer, younger coaches, those new head coaches that are trying to, break their teeth in or whatever they're saying? I know I'm saying that wrong, but they're trying to put their stamp on a game for their first game. How are you dealing with some of those type of coaches?
Well, sometimes you have to remind them of the rules because they want to try things. They're college coaches that are college assistant coaches that are now doing high school as a head coach. Surprisingly, I've had to tell a couple coaches, no, you cannot run what I call the sleeper play. It's illegal. Yeah. But we play. The answer is, well, we did it last week. No, you didn't. But the other coaches, they have an interesting way of expressing themselves. The more veteran coaches, senior coaches, they know we're out, doing our best, and we're not trying to ruin the game for anybody or pick anybody out in particular. But there are coaches who, just have to show that they're stronger than others. What I'm struggling with is whether I want to talk about. This is when I was a linesman. We were doing a game, and the coaches behind me were all police officers. And nothing against my daughter was a police officer, so, but they heard my first name, and they were calling me Mike. What about this? Mike, what about that? And of course, I don't know about you, but I'd like to be either called Mr. Referee or Mr. Linesman or Mr. Official.
Yep.
When you start calling my first name, and they were just screaming at me every chance they had. And then when the game was over, one of the police officers rushed my white hat, and he had to be restrained by two other police officers. They dragged him down to the ground.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going, gee, but these are guys, they're trying to make their mark. On the other hand, I had a game this season. Brand new coach, came out of the college ranks. His first job as a head coach, and he scored right at the end of the game to tie it up, or he was down by one. Was going to do the point after, and they went for two.
Okay.
They didn't make it. They went for two. But I went, this guy is my hero now. I mean, he was out there. He was trying. He was playing the game where to win. And you can't root, but you can observe, and you go, guy's going to be disappointed. Sorry to see that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. There's sometimes, not that you're cheering for one team as opposed to another, but sometimes you like to see scenarios play out if they could in a different fashion than how they did for one side or another. But again, I'm calling what I see, and that's it. And it doesn't matter the color of the jersey, the color of the skin, the god, whatever it is that makes an individual the individual that they are. I'm gonna call the game the way the game should be called, or the best way that I could call the game, regardless of the jerseys or anything like that. But there are sometimes after the game you're like, man, I wish it would have gone the other way for that other team. They just worked a little bit harder, or just the underdog mentality, different things like that. So it's definitely something that you see. And again, we're human. So that underdog thing is definitely something that comes into play for us. But again, try to keep that for after the game.
Well, as a referee, I'm standing behind the offense, and I'm always rooting for the offense. It doesn't matter which team it is, but I root for the offense. It makes my life more interesting when you see gains and passes and all that other great stuff. That's that makes football a terrific game. But at the same time, you never want to give an advantage to anybody, and we don't. We call them as we see them, like you said.
Yep. So now, with that, something that I know we're dealing with all across the country, and something that I'm trying to do is recruit more officials. What's your thought process with the shortage of officials? Like, what is your mindset with where we are with the number of officials that we have?
Well, talk about the shortage. I mean, it just, like in my case, it was something that was going on for 20 years in my head that I wanted to go do it. But we do an announcement before every game, but they know it's going to take a lot of time, and they don't whether they want to do it. And if you think about the younger officials, their lives are just starting out. They probably just got their first job or second job. So it's hard to get them down to do it. I think probably more advertising. We once, 25, 30 years ago, I was in charge of recruitment. We did a TV show about football to get people interested about it. But I think it's something where you're watching a game, and you start thinking, there's another perspective. There's another team out there. I want to be part of that. And trying to instill that, I don't have the answer. The other part, though, is retention of officials.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty blunt in the book that associations are driving officials away. You can't get Well, what's the biggest feedback you get as an official? You get a playoff game.
Yes.
And how good in the playoffs is an indication of how good you are. If there's no criteria, then you just think it's the old boy network. He's a friend of mine. I'll put him on a state game. That ticks people off. And then the other thing that always got me, my games were always 30 miles away.
Okay.
And living where I live, just getting to the highway would take 30 minutes. So I call driving one of the official killers. But the last thing I would recommend if we're trying to recruit people is to have them read my book. I think give them a real negative in some cases. I mean, the book is written at what I consider the 200 level for officiating.
Okay.
It's not beginners. But I have, we recruited, well, let's put it this way. When we were recruiting, we would get 35, 40 people who wanted to do football.
Mm-hmm.
Now we had a big class of about 12 this year.
Okay.
So have you ever thought about being an official? I think we could do more, but people have different lives now. I mean, lifestyle. I mean, when I was starting out, there was no social media.
Yeah. Well, we just started the show off talking about social media, and we're going to be all over social media with this show. So it is definitely a different time. But the one thing that I do truly like about the book, and I have completed it and I did read it through, is like you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of different spots in there that, okay, yeah, I can relate to that. If not that exact type of moment, something that made me remember something in my officiating career. And again, I'm going to be going into my 10th year. So I've just finished my 9th year. I'm 50 years old, but I'm still young officiating wise in that aspect. I've got more years on the coaching ledger than I do on the officiating ledger, but still within those 10 years, those 9 years, there's a lot of stuff in the book that I can definitely relate to from working different positions. And we talked about the umpire position, but I also started off as a short wing. I worked deep wing games too. And I'm also a certified white hat, and I fill in as a white hat. So there's a lot of relatable stories in there, even though, like you said, it's not all one game as the book says, but it's things that do happen. And it's a great lesson to learn on how to handle things and different things like that. So I do think there is a lot of credence to the book in that aspect of helping people learn.
Great. Glad you saw it that way. There is one thing that happened in the book, which really happened, which I doubt anybody else has ever had happen to them. When the AD threw out the student body.
Yeah, that was interesting.
I mean, this really happened. There was a timeout call from the sideline, and the AD came walking, or the director of student activities came walking towards me. Said, "I want to pause the game." And I said, "Oh, okay, why?" He said, "We're ejecting the student body." And I watched about 200 kids stand up and walk out. And I can't believe this is happening. What had happened was they had been playing in the stands. Neither team was very good. They had a water bottle, and they were throwing the water bottle, and they were catching it. And they were warned a couple times that this is dangerous. You get hit by a water bottle. And when the AD threw him out, I went, I was speechless, And then we resumed the very quiet game.
Well, and it's funny too, because again, relating, you talked about how trying to get all 200 plus of the student body out of a gate that was about the width for one person, and that's how the high school gates are set up. So I chuckled at that, because just working in a school system and seeing how that is. That had to take a long time adding to your game than should have been.
Well, yeah. Then there was pushing and shoving, so there was a little fighting too.
Yeah,
So it was. I think the DSA may have thought maybe he made a mistake, maybe he overreacted, But Yeah, it happened to me. It hasn't happened to anybody else I know of, so it's probably never going to happen again, but we'll see.
So now, in your opinion, you were talking about the retention of officials. What can we do better to keep more officials? I know you talked about the association, but what about just even educating or different things like that? Any other opinions on how we can retain even some more of the experienced officials?
Well, um, training by film. Um, we do a lot of that. We have a guy that is very good. The problem is it's during its meetings that people just get tired. You know,
Yeah.
I think we'd be better off if we did this somewhat during the off season. I talked to another NFL official once, and they were talking about being part-time refs, and he said, "I'm tested every week.
Mm-hmm.
I have study rules during the season, off the season. So don't tell me I'm a part-time ref. It's a full-time job." And I think people will be open to this kind of training, um, quizzes, but also to show some appreciation. Um, when we have we go deep. I mean, the playoffs just stopped, or just ended where I am, and there we put people on the crew, and our commissioner put a note out today saying that the crew was outstanding, and I went, fine, finally there's recognition. But at the same time, there was 100 and something players, officials who didn't get playoff games, and they're wondering why.
Yeah.
So feedback, if there's some way to measure, but at the same time, everybody's part time. I mean, they got full lives, full jobs. Uh, the officers of the association, they're trying to sandwich everything in, but they could do a better job of showing appreciation for the officials, their own
Yeah.
officials.
I like that. And that's definitely something because I now have just recently, I haven't started my tenure yet, but I got voted onto my association's board. So I am a trustee now on my association. Again, because I'm looking to try to continue to grow the sport and grow our association to help because one of the things that we have going on here in my area of New Jersey is we're getting more and more schools with lights and we don't have enough crews to work every single school that wants to have a Friday night game. So we've had to move some games to Thursday night. There's been some Saturday night games because we just don't have the numbers right now. And more schools. Goodness, I think we're down to 3 schools in our area that don't have lights, and one of them's getting lights and turf next year. So it's going to be down to 2. So it's making it more and more difficult. So yeah, definitely that appreciation aspect is something that goes a long way. A compliment here and there definitely goes a lot longer than people
Yeah,
tend to realize.
I think we as officials have a tendency. Since the only time people really see us on the field is when something went wrong.
Yes.
You know, other than the coin flip. Uh, so we have a tendency to be negative. We need to be positive. This was a great play. If they're showing a film, show what the good things were that were in the film as well. And my guys, they do that. They show positive stuff. This is an example. But being part of an association, either you love it or you leave it. And the stuff I don't like all goes away right at the kickoff. Then I go, like I said, it's my vacation for life, and I just worry about the game.
Yeah. No, I do got to give credit to not just not my chapter, but our state association here in New Jersey. We do some of that off-season training, and it's not just off-season training. It's Zoom meetings and different things like that. So it's a lot of film work, but like you're talking about, it is a lot of positive film work. We'll have sessions where it's going to be a whole session just on mechanics, and it's not these are the wrong mechanics. It's no, okay, let's take a look at how this play played out and look at where our officials were and how they did it correctly. So different things like that. So showing it more on the positive light instead of on the wrong mechanic that may have been. That's, I think, makes a big difference, because the mechanic is the one thing that I truly think is something for us that's correctable. We're going to miss a call. We're going to see something a little bit differently. But if we're in the right spot at the right time, it's going to make our jobs a lot easier. So learning those mechanics and getting better and seeing, okay, I did it a little bit differently. Now I see why they want us to do it that way. And it creates the game. And like I say to people, it slows the game down for us. It makes it just that much easier for us to see when something does happen and if we want to throw the flag or not. Like you're talking about that hold 30 yards behind the play. Not necessary to throw that flag. Putting ourselves in a good position, we're not only seeing our key, but we're noticing that the ball is on the far side of the field and not coming to us, not at the point of the attack, things like that.
Yeah.
So now, being the veteran official,
True.
well, we both are. What advice do you have for younger officials? Somebody that's just coming into the sport as an official. What can you say to them to keep them inspired, to keep them motivated, to keep going with it?
Well, have a sense of humor. It's a game. Who was the running back for Dallas? Thomas, was it? Where they were talking about the Super Bowl, and he said, "Well, if it's so important, why do they play it every year?" You're going to be working a football game. You're going to work from your mechanics, which means not only where you're supposed to stand, but where other people are. Realize things break, and don't take things overly serious. I mean, the coaches are going to take it seriously. I understand that, but you're doing a job that very few people can do. And you got to approach it with a lighthearted manner at times. I mean, you got to be into your mechanics. You got to be into the rules. You got to be able to do it. But you don't have to be heavy-handed. You don't have to snap back at people. When a coach is yelling at you, you kind of just look at him and go, "The guy's a jerk." I'm sorry to say that, coaches. I mean, there's a couple coaches I have a really great relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're yelling about stuff, they don't know the rules. So you have to take it and go, okay, I'm the expert, they're not. When I finally turn to some coach and say, why did you pass on third down as opposed to going for the 2 foot? There's times I want to say that, "Coach, what are you thinking?"
Yep.
You keep it to yourself. But my biggest thing is have a sense of humor. Realize there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. And in the end result, when that clock goes down to 0, it doesn't matter anymore. The other thing is you're working with an association, and it's like any other big mass, at work or anything else. You're going to have politics. You're going to have people you like, people you don't like. Just be aware of that.
And surround yourself with as many good people as you can.
Absolutely. But the sheer joy of the game sometimes just overwhelms me. You're out there, you're doing the game. It's Friday. The lights are on. You got a warm breeze. It's not cold. 2 teams are just playing. And they're playing hard football. The coaches are coaching. The fans are rooting. And you're just really glad to be part of that.
Yeah.
And you're an integral part, as I say to some people, what do officials do? I say, ever wonder how the ball gets ready to be snapped? How it comes in from the sideline? Yeah, that's a big part of our job, getting the play set up. It's an enjoyable experience.
And you kind of just led into what I was going to ask you to kind of cap off the show. One of your most rewarding or memorable moments of your officiating career, because there is a lot of great to the game, and I couldn't agree with you more with what you just said, that we are integral to the game, even though we try to hide a little bit.
this is a story that goes across two sports. We were doing a football game. It was a Saturday afternoon football game. And this one player, a captain, he just oozed leadership. I wanted to be around. I mean, and he just had this way about him, and it was great. And I really appreciated the way he handled his team, how he interacted with us. Go a couple months later, I'm in basketball. And he, it's a Wednesday night game before Thanksgiving. It's middle school. Middle school. These are, kids who can barely dribble. I shouldn't say that. Anyway, we're about halfway through the first quarter, and this captain from the school, football captain, comes walking into the gym. And I'm happy to see him. And he walks around the perimeter, and he sits with the students. And these are all, middle school kids. Coaches are coaching, players are playing, everybody's cheering, all this stuff. And I look over, and he's got the wave started.
Ah, nice.
And I'm doing this game, and the wave is going around me, and I went, it just doesn't get any better than this. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was just a real experience.
And that's a kid, like we were talking about earlier. That's a kid that you could root for no matter what, win or lose. He's somebody that you can root for, and I'm sure he's going on and having a successful life because those are the different things.
I knew his name because he'll probably be senator something one day.
Yeah. And that's one of the most rewarding things about sports in general is just seeing how some people grow and how some people, like you talked about, separate and become the leaders. Just how for some of them, it is just natural that they become those leaders. And that kid that we're dealing with now at the age of 14, 15, 16, 18 years old kid, that they're going in the right direction. And those are the ones that you could root for. And to see that, my son's a middle schooler right now playing basketball, so I could definitely relate to that. And when you get to those high school kids walking into the gym, kind of gives them, it kind of pumps up their middle school chest. They're like, oh, yeah, these guys are here to see us. And now all of a sudden they got the gym going. That's awesome. That's a great, great sensation and great feeling. Well, Mike, we are getting close to that hour mark, so I do like to keep it just shy of an hour. So once again, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Let me pop up here. So right here is the link again. If you go to this link, okay, you'll be able to find it on Amazon. You'll be able to find the book Friday Night Stripes, Mike Goldman. All right. Appreciate it once again, Mike, for you joining us. And if there's any last little words or anything else that people may be able to find you or reach out to you that you want to let them know about, let her rip.
Well, it's a great game. We've got to make it a little bit safer. Know when the right time is to root, that kind of thing. And remember, you got 5 guys out there that are basically volunteering their time. That third team on the field. And this has been happening. Walking to and from the field, people have been saying, thank you for working the game. Thank you for officiating.
Yep.
So keep things going. And, occasionally, by the way, we deserve to be yelled at.
Yeah, we are human.
Yeah. Oh, that's... When we do clinics, my first thing is I'm a human being.
Yes.
I'm going to make mistakes. But thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you once again for taking your time. And ladies and gentlemen, go out, get the book. It's a great read. It's a nice read, especially with football season for most of us coming to an end here in the high school level. It's definitely something that's going to make you and remind you about why we do the things that we do. And it's a great learning teachable moment type of book. So again, we all can continue to learn, get better, get in our rule books, but even just relating to stories like this are definitely going to help us all get better at what we do. So Mike, thank you once again. have a fantastic night. We're coming up to the holiday season, so have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, all the different holidays that are coming up. I don't want to leave anybody out, but have a safe and have a merry one, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye now.
Take care.